Hey friends, welcome back. My name is Elise, and this is 10 to Life, where we talk everything true crime and quite frankly, some of the most twisted and bizarre cases out there. And today's is no exception. So my question for you if you are watching this is, do you believe in dark magic? Do you believe in witchcraft, vampires, or sex cults? Because this one has it all. When you look into the faces of pure evil in this video, remember, there may be more than what it seems. So guys, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and let's get into it.
10 to Life with Elise starts right now.
Sydney was a blonde, blue-eyed bombshell with beautiful and unique bone structure. She was born on August 21st, 1993, to her parents George and Susie Loofe. She grew up in Nailey, Nebraska with her family until later moving 150 miles south to Lincoln after high school. Sydney had begun using dating apps like Tinder to find friends and dates back in 2017. While on the app, in November, Sydney matched with a nice girl named Aubry, who was close in age and lived 37 miles away in Wilburn, Nebraska. Aubry was a very attractive brunette with striking brown eyes and a very slim build. Aubry loved tattoos and relaxing and smoking Mary J. 2 days after meeting, Sydney and Aubry set up their first date for November 14th, 2017. Aubry picked Sydney up just before 6 p.m. and the girls drove around Lincoln while listening to music and smoking, some Mary J. They talked and enjoyed each other's company for a few hours before Aubry dropped Sydney back off at home, and then the girls made plans to meet again the next day. Sydney was on an ultimate high after this first date. She was excited and really enjoyed spending time with Aubry. Sydney even texted one of her friends that evening telling her how she had just met a super cute girl. She shared Aubry's picture and talked about how excited she was to go on another date with her. Just super giddy, the butterfly feeling, all of it. The next morning, Sydney woke up and started getting ready for work. She worked at Menards, a local hardware store. And while at work, she and Aubry began messaging back and forth about how they were looking forward to seeing each other again that evening. And you know the drill. When you first meet somebody and you're so excited, you've got that butterfly feeling, you can't stop texting them, you're eagerly waiting and looking at your phone wondering if they've texted you back. She was just so excited. And the plan was that they were going to meet up after Sydney's shift. After getting home and changing for her night out with Aubry, Sydney posted a picture of herself on Snapchat with a caption saying, "Ready for my date." Shortly after, Aubry pulled up to Sydney's apartment and the girls left to drive around to smoke again like the evening prior. However, the night did not end as well as it did the night before. Susie sent her daughter a text that night asking her about her post on Snapchat and mentioning her date, wondering who she was going out with, who this person was, just curious about what was going on. Susie didn't receive a response right away, but didn't really think too far into it. Although the next morning, on November 16th, when Sydney didn't show up for her shift at the hardware store, her friends and coworkers were worried. That was absolutely out of character for Sydney, especially not texting anybody to let them know ahead of time that she wasn't coming in. Susie, her mother, really became nervous when Sydney's sister began receiving messages from Sydney's close friends that nobody had heard from Sydney and that she was a no-show, no-call to work. Susie desperately tried getting a hold of her daughter after this troubling news, and every phone call to Sydney went straight to voicemail. The Loofe family didn't know what else to do, so they called the Lincoln County Police and asked them to go do a welfare check on Sydney. When police arrived at Sydney's home, they immediately noticed that her car was still in the driveway. All of the lights were on in her house, and her front door was locked. After repeated attempts to ring the doorbell, police decided to enter the home. It quickly became apparent that Sydney wasn't home, however. Although, since she was an adult and free to do as she wanted, there wasn't too much the police could immediately do. So when they left, they turned off all of the lights in the home so that the patrolling officers could easily tell if someone entered the home during this low-priority investigation. If they do another drive-by and the lights are on, they know that somebody now is home. Now, this Tinder date became quickly apparent by police. They tried pinging Sydney's phone and saw that she hadn't used it for almost 24 hours at that point. The ping location was in Wilburn, Nebraska, where Aubry lived. However, police were having a very hard time locating Aubry. Luckily, one of Sydney's close friends made a Tinder account and continuously swiped until she found Aubry's account. She messaged Aubry and eventually got her number, which was then forwarded to the police. The next morning, Sydney's family drove the 2 hours and 30 minutes to Lincoln to go look for her. When they arrived at Sydney's house, they immediately found things odd. First, the makeup bag that Sydney carried everywhere was still there, along with her glasses, which was the second red flag. Sydney wore contacts, and if she planned on being anywhere for an extended period of time, she certainly would have brought her glasses with her. The third and largest indication that something was afoot was that Sydney's cat Mimsy was left unattended without food or water. For Sydney's family, this was absolutely earth-shattering. Sydney wasn't the type of woman to run off without telling her family or friends, and she definitely wouldn't have left her beloved cat locked up to starve. She was an animal lover, so the signs were beginning to point in a very dark direction. Later that same day, investigators contacted Sydney's bank. Sydney hadn't made any transactions for 2 days. Police finally called Aubry and left her a message. She quickly called back and did talk to the investigator. Aubry said that she picked Sydney up on November 15th before 7 p.m., and she told them about their date, how they smoked, how they talked, and basically did the same thing as their first date, except Sydney asked to be dropped off at a friend's house, and Aubry obliged. She gave them her full name, Aubry Kane, and her contact information. Very cooperative and very forthcoming with information.
This photo, posted on Snapchat Wednesday, was the last time anyone heard from 24-year-old Sydney Loofe.
She texted me and told me about the date she had went on the night before with this gal and how great it went, and she was excited to go on a date with her again.
Lincoln police confirm investigators have spoken to the woman Loofe was planning to meet, but no other details. Tara Gehring, a coworker from Menards, says they let Loofe's family know when she didn't show up to work Thursday.
She wouldn't do this to her family. She respects her parents a lot, loves her parents a lot.
Loofe's parents, George and Susie, tell us officers checked their daughter's place in Lincoln and that her SUV is still parked in the front. Investigators say they got leads that Loofe may have been in Wilbur, Nebraska since her disappearance.
That's very strange to all of us. It's also very strange that her phone's off and disabled. I mean, she was always on Snapchat posting stories.
Loofe's friends all over Nebraska are helping spread the word via flyers and social media.
I hurt for her family. Our whole community is really just, they've come together so well through all of this.
Loved ones also sharing photos of Loofe's tattoos, anything to get her home.
Sydney is a beautiful, young, responsible girl, and she has a lot of family that loves and cares about her, and we just need her home because we miss her.
After a quick search, officers were able to verify that Aubry was using a fake phone number provided by an app. They were also able to obtain her username, email, as well as 3 different IP addresses. By cross-referencing the times and dates, they were able to get Aubry's real phone number. By looking at the phone records, it became apparent that Sydney was picked up on the night of November 15th. Both her and Aubry's phones traveled together from Lincoln to Wilbur, Nebraska. Although then, after 8 p.m., Sydney's phone had no more activity. 2 days later, a 51-year-old man named Aubry Trail contacted the police about the case. However, Aubry asked for the wrong officer and he was forwarded to a voicemail. When investigators later listened to the voicemail, Aubry Trail said that he believed police were looking for his fiancée, Bailey Boswell. Police were really confused at first. Was this Bailey person the friend that Aubry dropped Sydney off with the night of the 15th? The simple answer to that question is no. So then, who is Bailey, you might ask? Well, Bailey Boswell is a much younger fiancé of Aubry Trail by over 20 years. And Bailey also goes by the alias Audrey on Tinder. Once police realized that Aubry Kane was actually Bailey Boswell, the whole investigation took a turn. They got a search warrant on Aubry and Bailey's basement apartment, but by the time it was enacted, the couple was already long gone. Police talked to the landlord who lived in the upstairs apartment, and she said that on November 16th, the day after Sydney went missing, the basement apartment was emitting a very strong odor of bleach. and that it smelled so badly that the upstairs began to smell like it, and she had to open all of the windows and all of the doors as well as the garage. When that didn't suffice, she actually had to leave the house for a while. Multiple agencies became involved to try and locate Aubry and Bailey, who were now on the run. They were finally announced as persons of interest in the case on November 28, 2017, 2 weeks after Sydney's disappearance. The next day, this elusive couple posted a very odd video to the Loofe family's Facebook page for Sydney's disappearance. In the clip, the camera is focused entirely on Bailey, who is dead pale and almost completely immobile. She's hiding beneath her large sunglasses and a black hood that's a stark contrast to her pale skin. Aubry talks throughout the first part of this video. However, Bailey keeps him totally out of frame on purpose, except for his left eye. Aubry introduces them both and acknowledges that Bailey goes by different aliases on social media. He says that it's their chance to tell what happened, since police have wrongfully portrayed them as suspects. He goes on with a very manipulative dialogue and tries to be forthcoming by providing information while also trying to come across as a victim. The whole feel of this video is that Aubry is both writer and director of the entire thing. When he finally gives Bailey an opportunity to speak, she takes a very deep breath, almost like she was barely breathing the entire time he spoke. She goes on to talk about her date with Sydney and how she dropped her off at a friend's house after smoking and after giving her some Mary Jane. Bailey also says that they had made plans to go to a casino on the weekend and that she hadn't heard from Sydney since. Now, I, for one, find this entire video just extremely unnatural.
Good morning, Lincoln and Omaha and probably several other places. This is Aubry Trail and this is Bailey Boswell. I guess y'all also know her as Audrey. But we've spent the last few days watching ourselves being slammed and crucified in the newspapers and the news and everything else, so we thought it was time we had our say. We're not trying to defend anything. We're not trying to make you believe anything. We just feel we should get to say our side since everyone else gets to say theirs. Unlike the Lincoln Police Department and Saline County Police Department and all those folks, everything we're going to tell you, you're going to be able to pick up the phone or have a newspaper pick up the phone and very easily verify it. I am going to talk for a minute, then Bailey here is going to tell you about her 2 dates with Sydney, and we'll go from there. The Lincoln Police Department apparently wants everyone to believe that we're hiding, that we haven't talked to them, that we're avoiding them. Actually, we've spoken to the Lincoln Police Department a couple of times. We also, through my attorney, Doug Mertz in Falls City, Nebraska, please verify, we both wrote long statements and sent to the Lincoln Police Department telling them everything we know. We also, the day before Thanksgiving, which would be the 22nd, we repeatedly called the Lincoln Police Department when they were trying to contact us. After about 10 phone calls, please have a newspaper, ask for they record everything. We were told to quit blowing up their phone, even though we told them, hey, do you understand that we're the people you're looking for? They said, you've called here several times. We will get back to you when we can. So that's how that went. They're telling you that they have all these leads, that Sydney was last seen in Wilbur and such. What they're not telling you is that we are the 2 people who gave them all these leads. I called the Falls City Police Department because they went to my ex's house and looking for me, so I called to find out what was going on. Apparently they did not know my address in Wilbur. They thought I still lived in Falls City. I talked to the sergeant there. I told him what my address was in Wilbur. That night they went to my house and searched our house. We found out that on the 21st, I think it was, or the 20th, the county attorney in Wilbur, Saline County, filed a warrant against me for possession of a firearm, which is insane. I have never owned a firearm in 20 years. The next day, according to the papers, the warrant was withdrawn, but the Lincoln paper is not telling you that the warrant was withdrawn because there was no firearm in my house. But they will have you believe that. Several other things. I guess the FBI and the U.S. Marshals and all that good stuff, and a lot of other people with a lot of initials that I have no idea what means, is investigating, looking for us or whatever. We were at our house 4 days ago. No one showed up. We were in Wilbur. We've been to Wilbur twice. We have a young lady with us for a week, which is Bailey's sometimes girlfriend. The Omaha police started calling her phone, telling her pretty much that she's in danger with us. So we took her home the day before Thanksgiving. She was with us when Bailey and I were trying to call the Lincoln Police Department. She can verify this if you want her name. I guess friend us and message us on Facebook, because as we know stuff, you will know stuff, because we're not cutting, editing, or anything. If we make a slip on this video and say something that you find incriminating, please let us know. And you've already crucified us in the newspapers. You've already crucified us on Facebook. In America, I sure thought it was a trial first, but I guess not. You've heard all of this stuff about my criminal history. All true. Been convicted of bad checks and forgery and all that good stuff, but never been convicted of anything like, I guess I'm a person of interest on now. And oh yeah, the Lincoln Police Department failed to tell you that me and Bailey do about $100,000 a year business in antiques on eBay, the antique malls in Lincoln, Omaha, all this stuff. They will have you believe that I'm still just a criminal running around. But I don't really need to explain all of that, because as far as I know, I'm not wanted for anything. I'm a person of interest, and I'm not really running from anything. I mean, naturally, I can't go home now because my house has been swarmed, searched, and I'm being looked for. But and I assume that I have a warrant out of state somewhere now, so that kind of cancels that out. So this has pretty much cost me my life, and I appreciate that from the Lincoln Police Department and the FBI and all those other agencies. But I pray for Sydney. I hope she's found soon. I wish the family the best. I'm sorry that she wasn't with you on Thanksgiving. And that's pretty much all I can say for now. Here's Bailey to tell you whatever she wants to. I'm fixing to step aside and get out of this. Thank you for listening.
Hi, good morning. I'm Bailey, Audrey on Tinder, and a few other names because I have warrants, but this really isn't about me. This is about Sydney, and I'm just kind of want to tell you what I've already told the Lincoln Police more than one time. I met her on a Tuesday. We drove around Lincoln, smoked weed, had a great time. We hit it off. I dropped her off at home, picked her up the next night at her house. We drove around, smoked weed again, made our way to my house where we smoked wax and shatter, and I gave her a 1/4 ounce of some really good weed. I went to take her home, and she asked me to drop her off at a friend's house, so I did so. I gave her my number. We were planning to go to the casino that weekend. I haven't heard from her since. I really don't even know what else to say. I've been seeing all this stuff on the news presses and the magazines and the news, and I guess I just want the family to know that I'm truly sorry, and I didn't have anything to do with this, and I hope that Sydney is found very soon. She is a sweet, amazing girl. I don't know. Babe, do you have anything else to say?
I hope also that Sydney's found soon. We wish the family the best. We're sorry you're going through this. As far as all this stuff that the police department is putting in the papers, putting on the news, what they're feeding to the media, what they want the media to know, there's nothing I can do about that. There's nothing she can do about that because the police department is going to do what suits them best. Yeah, I know that's coming from a criminal, so, you'll believe what you will as far as the police department is concerned. But as far as I'm concerned, what they're chasing us around like dogs, I wish the family the best. I mean, no disrespect to anyone. I wish Sydney the best. But as far as the police department, you.
Yeah.
Shortly after the video was posted, it was deleted, and the account behind the post of the video was deactivated. That same day, 2 more videos were posted to a different account. The first video was of Aubry Trail alone, who seemed to try to control a narrative. In a condescending tone, he gaslights the public for suspecting him. Of course, he said that the police were lying and that everyone should believe him because he's honest about being a liar and a thief, which I'm not so sure the logic behind that one, but okay. So Aubry also let it slip that Bailey had a phone just for her Tinder activity, which why does anyone need a whole phone for one app, unless you're doing something that you're not supposed to do? After talking about himself for most of the video, Aubry finally announces that they plan to turn themselves in.
Hi folks, Aubry Trail here. Few little things I want to talk about. I've been watching all day. I just watched the news. That's why I'm making this. First thing I want to clarify is the news just reported that our contact with the police in Lincoln never took place. Well, let me assure you that it did. Bailey spoke with Investigator Cleveland twice. I called on the 22nd. I called the investigator's phone and left messages about 4 times. I called the Lincoln Police Department, the dispatchers, about 8 times. As far as this is not on record, I guarantee you it's on record. It's on Bailey's Tinder phone. It'll be on their phones. I know for a fact she spoke with them twice, at least. I never talked to Saline County Police Department. Never said I did. I spoke with the sergeant at the Falls City, which is Richardson County Police Department, because they went to my ex-wife's house asking for me. So I called them and I informed them where I now live. So if we're going to talk, let's try to get it straight. I mean, the police can say or do what they want, as I can, so you'll believe what you believe. But I've been watching a lot of posts and comments today. So far today, from the comments, we have apparently murdered this lady. We have apparently put her into human trafficking and sold her. And not only did we do that, we used the money. We went to the casino that weekend and used the money that we sold her for. Bailey didn't drop her at a friend's house. She dropped her off at her drug dealer's house, Bailey's, according to the comments you guys are making. Oh yeah, and don't forget the one that I was in Falls City. I lived in Falls City for a long time. So I have some connection to the Rouleau cult because people heard all about that. And just out of curiosity, is it me, or I guess it's just me and, my criminal mind, how that works? The post we made this morning was deleted from the family's Facebook. Totally understandable. My whole Facebook and Bailey's whole Facebook page was deleted. The video was taken off by the feds or whoever took it off. Just curious, are we not allowed to tell our side of this? Attorneys that we didn't cooperate with the officers in Lincoln. My attorney is Doug Mertz, M-E-R-Z, Falls City, Nebraska. He is not only my attorney, he is the county attorney there. Feel free to contact him. He is the one who represents me in pretty much everything when I need representation. I send him mine and Bailey's statement.
By now, the Lincoln Police Department should have those statements. Bailey, like I said, talked to Officer Cleveland twice, told him pretty much everything that we have told you today on the video. Someone also made the comment that Bailey said Sydney was this and was that. Folks, go back and review the video. It can't be changed. It can't be edited. It's already posted. All of the stuff that you're saying was said. It's not been said. Maybe we didn't watch the same video. Maybe you didn't watch the video we made. But a lot of the stuff you're saying that was said is nowhere in that video. Someone posted that I said that Sydney was with us for a week, but Bailey said that she dropped her off at her friend's. Watch the video. That girl's name was Katie that was with us for a week. The Omaha Police Department started questioning about her, saying she was in deep trouble because she was with us, so we took her home on the 22nd. The 22nd is the day that we blew up the Lincoln Police Department's phone, trying to get someone to talk to us. 3 minutes turned into 3 hours that they were supposed to call us back. And of course, again, I'm just a criminal, so you're going to believe none of this, and I guess it's really irrelevant because we've pretty much decided to turn ourselves in and see where this goes. Because now we're seeing on the news the people of Wilbur are terrified because I guess we're guilty by association, which is fine, because I've never made an excuse for anything I've done in my life. I do what I do, be it if I'm a thief, I'm a thief, but I'd be goddamned I've never killed anyone in my life. I've never hurt a female in my life, so take that for whatever the hell it's worth. But listen to some of your comments. Listen to what you're saying. Just sit back and read what you're writing. You've got us, you know nothing about us except that I have a criminal history. You use me saying that Bailey and I make a lot of money on antiques as me bragging. I was simply saying it to show you that I'm no longer with the criminal activity and I run a legitimate business now. Yes, I have warrants, but I've had warrants for years. I've got a warrant in Minnesota that's been there for 12 years. The pistol, let's address that so it doesn't look like I was lying. Read the Omaha World Herald ad of, I think it was 3 days ago. It plainly states in there that a warrant was issued because of a firearm found and that the warrant was withdrawn on the 22nd. That's where I got that information, but God forbid, I listen to newspapers, I guess, but it seems everyone else does. I don't know what else to say. I guess you'll find out what you find out at the press conference tomorrow. But naturally, someone commented that we weren't being crucified in the paper, but we would be now, that this has not helped our cause at all. And you may be right. But we don't have a lot to hide. I mean, transparency, we don't have much to tell. Someone wanted to know what friend Bailey dropped Sydney off with. Bailey knew Sydney for 2 days. How the hell does she know? Now she's stoned on drugs, out of her mind. What is she doing messing with a 51-year-old man? Does that really have any relevance of this? And oh yeah, thanks for the comment about I'm not very intelligent and I'm stupid and all this. Appreciate that. But your opinion is your opinion. You know, think what you want, do what you want. The officers in this investigation have the people of Wilbur scared to death. They don't understand. They didn't know that people like us were living next to them. What the hell is people like us? People with criminal histories? Did you check my criminal history? Forgery, bad checks, theft. That's it. I mean, not saying I'm a nice guy. I'm a crook. I'm a thief. Have been all my life. Okay? But I'm not what you're trying to make me out to be. And the last thing, I guess, is you were uncertain as to whether or not it was me and Bailey in the video. It was absolutely us. And she's going to show you some of her tattoos so you know it's her. And someone said her hair is a different color. So what? You know, big deal. And someone said no lawyer out there would say, don't turn yourself in. Actually, all the lawyers say, don't turn yourself in, don't talk to the police, don't do this, don't do that. But we've pretty much decided to turn ourselves in because we've pretty much been convicted anyway. And if we keep running, I guess maybe it's going to look bad for you. But, hey, we don't want to go to jail. I sure as hell don't want to go to jail on some trumped-up gun charge, but looks like that's what's going to happen. But I'll be goddamned if I'm going to stand here and be accused of doing something to someone you pretty much blatantly said that we murdered this girl. You blatantly said that we've sold her into some kind of trafficking. This is just, it's ridiculous. It's ludicrous.
It really seemed like he forgot why he was recording and just ripped the comments apart. The next video is the complete opposite of the first, in which Bailey keeps her face out of the frame to show her identifiable tattoos. However, the point of the video is to prove it's actually Bailey, so why not show her face like in the first video? Again, both of these videos were deleted rather quickly after they were posted.
Hi, this is Bailey. There was some confusion on whether or not it was us, so showing you my tattoos to prove that it's us. I'm not trying to hide that. I pretty much agree with everything that Aubry said. I wanted to say it myself, but he wouldn't let me because I probably wouldn't have been so nice about it. But I do want to add one thing. That guy that lives across from us that supposedly said her phone was buried deep in our backyard. I like that. That's funny.
The next day, police announced that they had finally located the couple and detained them in Branson, Missouri on unrelated warrants. It's unclear if the videos they posted led to the arrest, but they absolutely did not turn themselves in, as the couple stated in one of their last videos.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Randy Theisey. I'm Special Agent in charge of the FBI Omaha Division. Joining me here today is everybody that's been working on this task force, all the different agencies involved. So we've been working very good together. Also joining us today are Sydney's parents, George and Susie. So thank you guys for being here. We're here today to ask for the public's help in obtaining information relating to a missing woman, Sydney Loofe. Now, Sydney's been missing for nearly 2 weeks, and we extend our heartfelt prayers and wishes to the entire Loofe family and all the friends during this trying time. Also, I'd like to thank all the volunteers that have been assisting law enforcement over the last few days. I really appreciate their assistance. Sydney went missing on the evening of November 16th. On November 17th, Sydney's mother contacted the Lincoln Police Department and asked for a welfare check because she hadn't heard from her. And then shortly after that, it was determined that she was missing. Recent information that we received from the public has really helped our investigation tremendously. So that's kind of why we're here today, is to ask for the public's assistance in getting information to help locate and bring Sydney home. Okay. Literally moments ago, we've made contact with two individuals that I think we all know here, Miss Boswell and but it's a very fluid situation. We've located both of them, and we're talking with both of them at this particular time. So as the details become more clear and as it develops, I will keep everybody updated. But even though we've interviewed, or we have located and interacting with the two individuals that have been in the news related to this investigation, we are still seeking any and all information from anybody regarding their knowledge of where Sydney could be, and to ask for their assistance. To that end, what we've done, the FBI has set up a number and asking anybody with any information relating to this investigation to give us a call. Our number is area code 402-493-8688, and you just hit option 1. We have multiple individuals standing by ready to take your calls, and they'll be able to get this information to our task force that is working this investigation, so it can be immediately turned into actionable items. But we stand shoulder to shoulder with our law enforcement partners, and we're all committed, and we are applying all of our resources to help bring Sydney home. I know you guys will have a lot of further questions as the case develops, but this is an ongoing investigation, and we ask for your patience and understanding as it develops. Due to the critical nature and the type of investigation, there's a lot of comments that I won't be able to make at this time, but I'd like to reassure everyone that we are doing our best as a law enforcement team here to pursue any and all leads relating to this investigation. I appreciate everyone joining us today and hope together as a community we can work together to bring Sydney home. And again, I ask anybody in the public with any information to call us at area code 402-493-8688, and then again, hit option 1 on the phone. And with that, we'll take a few questions.
Did they turn themselves in? Did 2 people of interest?
At this time, I'd rather not comment on that. They've been located, and we are interacting with them right now.
Where were they located at?
Somewhere in the Midwest, as of right now.
They're not in Lincoln, though, at this time?
No, they are not.
Did this search find anything in Miller?
Sheriff Alan Moore and a whole host. I think that when we were speaking last night, over 50 law enforcement personnel and several volunteers were involved in those particular searches, and they did not discover any new evidence that are leading us directly to where Sydney may be. I'm gonna. I think George wants to sort of make a couple comments, please, and then we're going to go ahead, George.
I guess on behalf of our family, on behalf of our family, I would like to thank all of you, all of the people that have made the pins, made the flyers, gotten the word out on social media, all the support that our family has received. Continue that, and thank you for all of your prayers. And in my opinion, someone knows something. Please do the right thing. Thank you.
They claim that they've made contact with you guys very early on in the investigation, but they say you guys never said that happened. Can you say whether that did or not happen?
Go ahead, Chief. Sure, I can answer that. They have attempted to make contact. We have had contact, and going into it any further than that is, I think, is detracting from the investigative process, and so that's the comments.
But they were cooperative from the beginning?
We had contact with them over the phone.
After the arrest, police quickly discovered that on November 14th, before Sydney went on her first date, Aubry Trail and Bailey Boswell were captured on surveillance cameras checking into a Lincoln hotel before Bailey went on her Tinder date with Sydney. The day after, they were caught on multiple store cameras in Lincoln, Nebraska, where they bought drop cloths, 30-gallon trash bags, 2 gallons of bleach, a hacksaw, a foldable tree saw, and a utility knife. Also on that same day, Aubry Trail was seen walking into that hardware store while Sydney was working. Unbeknownst to her, Sydney was being watched by Aubry. You can see him walk into the store and pass Sydney. They met eyes for a split second as Sydney walked out of the store, not knowing that she had just looked into the eyes of pure evil. After the encounter, Aubry quickly bought something and left. November 4th, 2017, 3 weeks after Sydney disappeared, police made a horrific discovery. They found human remains scattered on the sides of different rural roads. The body was dismembered and wrapped tightly in trash bags. Police were finally able to identify the body of Sydney Loofe when they found a fragment of her arm with an identifiable tattoo circled in marker that read, "Everything will be wonderful someday." 3 months after this horrific discovery, police brought Aubry back in for questioning. They showed him a graphic picture of Sydney's severed arm. Aubry finally began to break his resolve. He started to give small but meaningful details into the death of Sydney Loofe. He adamantly denied that Bailey had any involvement in Sydney's death on the night of November 15th. He told police that he had paid Sydney to fulfill an erotic asphyxiation sex fantasy with him and 2 other women. He also told police that he was the leader of a sex cult and that Sydney was murdered in a ritualistic killing for the gods in his religion. He went on to say that he and the members of his cult cut her to pieces and drained her blood to release her soul to the gods in a sacred spot, which I guess Aubry means his bleached out basement bedroom is where this sacred spot was. Now by this point, Bailey Boswell had continuously denied any involvement in Sydney Loofe's murder. However, Bailey's phone did ping in a spot where a part of Sydney's body was dumped on November 16th, 2017. So both parties were finally charged with first-degree murder in June of 2018. Aubry Trail's trial finally began in 2019. He rolled into the courtroom while in a wheelchair since he had suffered multiple strokes and had heart attacks while in prison. And as if that wasn't shocking enough, on the 6th day of his trial, Aubry screamed, "Bailey is innocent, I curse you all," before plunging a pen into the side of his neck. Luckily, he barely broke the skin, and after a few stitches, he appeared in court again the very next day.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us.
A shocking day in a Saline County courtroom.
Aubry Trail's murder trial was at a standstill after his outburst sent him to the hospital. Channel 8 Eyewitness News reporter Joe Harris was there and has the latest in our top story tonight. Joe?
Megan, and Trail shouted something and then cut his own throat. It was a scene rarely witnessed in courtrooms.
Stop recording.
It was pandemonium in the Saline County courtroom on day 6 of the Aubry Trail trial. The accused killer of Lincoln woman Sydney Loofe cut his own throat in court Monday morning. It happened just before 11:30. As prosecution was calling its next witness, Trail shouted,
"Bailey is innocent and I curse you all."
Members of the Saline County Sheriff's Office swarmed Trail as he swiped at his neck with an unknown object. He was transported by ambulance to a local medical center. Court went back into session at 2 o'clock. That's when Judge Vicki Johnson announced Trail was in custody and ordered that he be handcuffed for the remainder of his trial appearances.
We are adjourned for the day, except for talking to the jury.
She told jurors to disregard Trail's outburst and not consider it as evidence in the case.
3 of Aubry Trail's witches from his sex cult came forward at the trial. They all described a very eerily similar story to that of Sydney's. They met Bailey or one of her aliases on Tinder and learned that she was in an open relationship with Aubry. They all spoke about how Aubry brought them in and told them that he was a vampire who could fly and read minds. He required them to call him daddy, gross, and gave them impossible rules to follow. If they broke any of his rules, he would punish them. One girl spoke about how Aubry told her that she had to call him every 3 hours or she would be punished. She inevitably broke the rule and was severely hurt. Her beating included being viciously whipped by Bailey, getting violently hit, and was forced to perform sex acts. Aubry had beaten the girl down so badly that she truly thought that the only way that she could be a real witch and gain these mystical powers was if she killed somebody. This girl was never allowed to wear clothes in Aubry's presence and was often choked with a belt or slapped to the point of unconsciousness. Aubry spoke about how his eBay antique business was actually a cover for a criminal organization that somehow involved paying girls for sexual favors. Now, I'm not very convinced about anything he says, but apparently he thought that it would make him look less at fault somehow by saying this. At the end of his trial, he pled not guilty for first-degree murder, but was thankfully convicted for the first-degree murder of Sidney Loofe. Aubry Trail became the 12th man in the state of Nebraska on death row. At the end of his sentencing, Aubry read his final statement to Sidney Loofe's family, and, not surprisingly, it contradicts everything that he said about Sidney's death prior.
Go ahead.
First, I would like to say that even though I have to direct my statement to the court, I understand that it's not for the court, it's for Sidney Loofe's family. And I also want you to know that my attorneys could only defend me on what I told them, and I think they did a great job at that, but they could only work with what I told them, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I guess last request is, I don't want to do this like a coward. Is there any way that I can come to that side of the table and face the Loofe family when I read this statement to them?
No, sir, you need to stay where you are.
Yes, ma'am. I am writing this down so that I don't leave anything out, as this will be the only time I get to address Sidney Loofe's family. I realize that nothing I can say here today will change in the least what I did to Sidney 3.5 years ago. I won't say I'm sorry, as that would be an insult to you after what I've put you through, and I won't ask for forgiveness, as I don't believe there is such a thing. I doubt that there is such a thing as closure in a case such as this, so I won't pretend that I am doing that. I am only doing what I should have done 3.5 years ago. A lot of very bad things have been said about me, and I don't disagree. I have never claimed to be a good person, but I do, however, live by a set of rules. During my interviews with law enforcement and here in this courtroom, a lot of lies were told about Sidney Loofe. I was fighting a death penalty case, so telling the truth was the farthest thing from my mind. If you know where to look on the internet, you will find that a lot of people believe those lies, and I would now like to clear those up. Sidney Loofe did not die as a result of erotic asphyxiation. I murdered her. Sidney was never a part of our group. She was never paid to participate in any sexual or criminal activities, nor did she ever make phone calls for me in any of my scams. Sidney was never at the Grand Weaver Motel with me. The 2 motel clerks that testified that they saw her there with me on more than one occasion were mistaken. I took a lot of women to that motel, and obviously they mistook one of them for Sidney. The landlord's wife from the apartment here in Wilbur, who testified that she saw Sidney at the apartment with me earlier in the summer of 2017, was mistaken. Sidney was never at the apartment prior to the one time in November of 2017. A lot of women were in and out of there. A lot of them were blondes. I'm sure she mistook one of them for Sidney. When I told law enforcement where Sidney Loofe's phone was, and told them that what was on her phone would help me more than it did them, it was a calculated risk. I had no idea what was on her phone. I took a guess that there would be something on the phone that could be used in a negative light. There were a couple of pictures and comments on there that I exploited to the fullest. They had absolutely nothing to do with her being involved in a secret lifestyle. Katie Brandel, who was with us for a week after Sidney's death, had nothing to do with it, and she was not with us when we disposed of Sidney's body in Clay County. Until now, I have never told the truth about how and why Sidney died. Almost everything I said was a lie unless it benefited me. The state got a lot of it right, but not some of the biggest things. I did use Bailey to lure Sidney to the apartment, as I had done with all the girls. You heard 3 of them testify at my trial. The plan, however, was not to get her there to kill her, but to pull her into our little group. I used women for sex and in my criminal activities. Killing her intentionally would have been very counterproductive. I do not deny, however, that I premeditated Sidney's murder. The only difference is it was 2 or 3 hours after she got to the apartment that I decided to kill her, and not days in advance. But premeditation, as I understand, is premeditation, and that makes very little difference. I seriously misjudged Sydney from her and Bailey's messages and what happened on their first date. Once I sat Sydney down and started explaining how we made money, some of our criminal activities, and about the group sex and other things, I knew I had made a bad mistake as Sydney somewhat freaked out. I tried for about 30 minutes to calm her down and had Bailey talk to her, but it did no good. I finally restrained her by tying her hands in front of her. I took her in the bedroom and told her to lay down and relax and warned her what would happen if she didn't. The truth is, I killed Sydney because of her reaction to what I had told her and shown her. I had no doubt that she would tell people if I let her go. At the time, Bailey and I both had warrants and were living the good life from our criminal activities, and I was willing to do anything to protect that. I strangled Sydney with an extension cord in the bedroom of the apartment here in Wilbur. I have always told the truth when I said Bailey was not in the bedroom when I killed Sydney. Bailey was in the living room when I killed Sydney. All I told Bailey when I went into the bedroom was to stay there. I was going to talk to Sydney. I've always told the truth that the reason I dismembered her body was that I could find no other way to get her out of the apartment without being seen carrying her. Bailey helped me carry Sydney's body from the bedroom into the dining room. I had planned to have her help me in the dismemberment, but she started dry heaving just carrying Sydney's body, so I did it myself. I am the one who made the outline around Sydney's tattoo. There was no message or satanic anything meant by that. I had planned to remove her tattoos to make it harder to identify her body, but didn't. That is why the tattoo was outlined. Bailey and I cleaned up the apartment, and she drove me to Clay County, where I disposed of Sydney's body in an overgrown ditch line. I've done some terrible things in my life, but this is the only thing I have ever done that I feel real regret about. In the past, I could justify myself, but not this time. Sydney did nothing but reject my lifestyle and threatened to expose it, and I killed her for it. I am fully aware that nothing I have said will change a single thing here today, but it is the truth. I am not looking for mercy, forgiveness, or anything else. To be quite frank, and with no disrespect intended to the court, I could care less what you do to me here today. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. 7, sentence A, imposed by the panel on count 1, murder in the first degree, a class 1 felony. The defendant is sentenced to death. B, imposed by the presiding judge on count 2, improper disposal of human skeletal remains, a class 4 felony. The defendant is sentenced to 2 years in the Nebraska Department of Corrections. Such sentence will run consecutive to count 1. On count 2, pursuant to Nebraska statute, the court finds following substantial and compelling reasons why the defendant cannot effectively and safely be supervised in the community on probation. A lesser sentence would depreciate the seriousness of the crime and promote disrespect for the law. Incarceration is necessary to protect the security of the public. The risk is substantial that during a period of probation, the defendant will engage in additional criminal conduct, and the defendant is in need of correctional treatment that can be provided most effectively by commitment to a correctional facility. C, imposed by the sentencing judge on count 3, criminal conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. The defendant is sentenced to 50 years in the Nebraska Department of Corrections, consecutive to counts 1 and 2.
As for Bailey Boswell, her trial wasn't held until 2021. However, she too was found guilty of first-degree murder. Bailey was also found guilty of the needless mutilation on Sydney's body. She was eligible for the death penalty, but since she was the only woman that would be on death row, they were worried about where they would house her. They even considered putting her in with the men's death row and keeping her in solitary confinement for her own safety. However, in the end, it was decided that they didn't have the proper resources to house her, and she was sentenced to life in prison.
The woman convicted in the killing and dismemberment of Sydney Loofe is not heading to death row. A 3-judge panel sentenced Bailey Boswell to life in prison in a hearing at the Saline County Courthouse. All 3 judges must agree in order to impose the death penalty. Judge Peter Battalion of Omaha dissented, saying the state failed to prove its aggravating factor.
Nothing in this dissent should be understood to diminish the senselessness of the murder of Sydney Loofe and the great pain this has caused her family and friends. However, because I could not find that the state had met its burden of proof, As to the aggravating circumstances, I hereby dissent from the other two judges on this panel.
The state argued for just one aggravating factor, that the slaying manifested exceptional depravity by ordinary standards of morality and intelligence. Judges Vicki Johnson and Darla Ideas both thought the state proved it. Johnson said it was evident that Boswell relished the murder and mutilated Loofe's body.
The needless mutilation of Sidney Loofe's body demonstrates the mental state of Boswell at the time of the murder, a mind totally and senselessly bereft of any regard for human life. This factor has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt and weighs heavily against the defendant.
The panel didn't offer its opinion on the defense's mitigating circumstances. It was irrelevant after the judges couldn't agree on the aggravating factor. The life sentence is in contrast to Boswell's co-defendant, Aubry Trail, who was sentenced to death in June. They were convicted of the same crime, but defense attorney Todd Lancaster says he proved Boswell has higher character than her boyfriend.
I think we put on lots of mitigating circumstances showing that Bailey Boswell as a person was a lot different than Aubry Trail.
Boswell didn't show much emotion in the courtroom during the sentencing. In her aggravation and mitigation hearings, she pleaded with the panel to spare her life so she could have a role in her daughter's life.
She's grateful she's not going to receive a death sentence, particularly for her family and her daughter. That's kind of her reaction.
The Loofe family and prosecutors left without comment. Boswell's attorney says there's likely to be an appeal on the guilt or innocence phase of her trial. That appeal must be filed within 30 days. In Wilbur, Michael Shively, News Channel, Nebraska.
No matter how this story ends, the act of murder and mutilation of Sidney Loofe was absolutely senseless. Sidney was cut into 14 pieces. However, police never found her other upper arm. With the illusion of witchcraft and vampirism and sex cults, in the end, it was just two disgusting individuals who are reminders that devils may walk amongst us every day. And I'm curious how they lured Sidney in. Did they too promise her mystical powers and that she would be a witch, and is that why she was so interested? Or was this truly just a thrill kill and maybe a sacrificial kind of kill in their opinion? But was this something where Bailey really just lured Sidney in on this date and then they said, she's the perfect mark, let's go get all the supplies the next day and let's carry this out? Or was Sidney showing some sort of interest? I don't think she was. I think she just really thought this girl was cute and wanted to go on a date with her. And I'm interested in your thoughts. Do you think that these punishments were fair? Should Bailey have gotten capital punishments as well? It seems not right that she was spared the death penalty simply because there was a lack of resources. If that's the punishment and the justice that is deserved and decided, that should be carried out. So tell me your thoughts in the comments below. This is definitely one of the spookier cases that we've talked about on this channel, and it's just a reminder, guys, if you're meeting people online or dating online, please always be extra cautious because you never know what kind of evil is lurking behind the screen and just trying to prey on people and find their next target. All right, guys, until the next case, stay safe. Bye.